How's it going, everybody? My name is Infamous Isaac and I'm here with a video on Alita the Battle Angel. So this video is going to be a little different, and that's more in a sense of what's in the background. It's going to be full gameplay because if I go to Minecraft, it's literally going to be me spinning in circles for the entire video because my controller has drift. So instead of torturing you guys and putting you guys through that, I'm just going to have this in the background since I have enough gameplay to do that. Minecraft live commentary will come back, so don't worry about that. I just need to wait for the new controller to get here. And by the way, shout out Reaper for helping me with that. He's the reason it's all possible. But regardless, let's get into the non-spoilers for this movie. So this movie came out in 2019 and it's based on a manga that came out in Japan in the 90s. Which I didn't know. I thought it was like its own original source material, so that's pretty cool. I did want to watch it back when it came out in theaters, but I never got the opportunity to. So 4 years later, I find out that it's on Hulu, so I was like, oh shoot, bet, let me go give this a watch. But having thought about it after I finished it, this movie to me is a 6 out of 10. Even though I love sci-fi, this movie just wasn't it for me. The characters were dull and boring for me. Like, every character just felt flat, uninteresting, had one thing going for them. You have the main character, who I thought was cool, and actually is my favorite one. But even then, at most, her character's like a 7 out of 10 for me right now. The story didn't keep me engaged in a lot of places. While there were some that did catch my attention, that was more because of the legwork that the sci-fi and the world building was doing. But the sci-fi elements in this world felt underutilized because this world in concept is so cool to write a story about. And granted, there is a sequel coming out for this movie. It's similar to how Dune is doing it, where the first one came out and already had a sequel planned. And before it starts to sound hypocritical, I like this one more than the other. The reason why I like Dune more with the way it handled it is because they expanded upon the sci-fi elements in the worlds that they had in their universe. Alita doesn't feel like it does that. And that's crazy to me too because of how many opportunities they have with all the machines and the tech and the lore that's built in the world that they mention offhandedly to explain some things, but never expound upon it enough to really get me invested. And they're probably going to expand upon that in the sequel, but the first one I wish just had more meat on the bone. And granted, I haven't read the manga, so I don't know if the movie's really faithful to it or not, but this movie just has so much potential, so I will check out the second one to see if it can live up to it, or at the very least, I guess, my expectations. And by the way, I want to interject here and say I don't want it to come off like I think this movie is bad or anything like that. I think this movie's fine. I say it later on in the video that this movie's average to me. Some parts being above average, other parts being below average. But overall, any person who watches this can find some enjoyment from it. Unless if you just don't like sci-fi, or you don't like the CGI or stuff like that. Or the story may be too simple, or maybe you just don't care about the story. But any person can at least find something in this movie to like. Definitely more of a general audience movie for sure. The CGI was cool, nothing that really blew me away, but it was good for what this world was. The fighting was cool. The main character for sure had the best fights, no doubt, probably because they were the only one that really fought. The music didn't stick out to me, and that's not saying that it's bad, just more that I didn't remember it much. The actors as well, they did a good job. It wasn't a tearjerker performance, but it still was good for the movie. But overall, while I am a little dissatisfied with how it turned out, I want to see how the sequel turns out. Maybe I'll check out the manga to see if they handle it differently, if they utilize the narrative that they have. But overall, 6.5 out of 10. Now let's move on to the spoiler section. So, as per usual, I will be going over story spoilers for Alita the Battle Angel, the movie at least. So if you don't want to get spoiled, then leave now, go watch it, and you can come back to the video if you want to. The video will, for the most part, always be here. So, without further ado, let's begin. So this movie takes place half a millennia after our time period, so 2563. And it's a sci-fi type world where we have cyberpunk aesthetics put onto people, like arms, legs, and stuff like that. And then we have a floating city in the sky as well. So we have Zalim, which is the floating city, and then Iron City, which is the ground below. And we basically cut to a scrap heap that houses all of Zalim's garbage and just junk that they throw down to the Iron City, showing that the Sky City is just arrogant and pompous in a sense where they don't care what happens to the city below. They see them as inferior. And one of the people that we see rummaging through this junk is Dr. Dyson Ito, one of the important characters of this movie. He manages to find a cyborg with a human brain and a heart, And so he takes her and he brings her to his lab where he starts operating her to see if she can still be brought back to life. So because there's still brain activity in that body, he brings over a suit that he had made for someone else, aka his daughter, and he gives it to this cyborg. And after having worked on her for so long, she wakes up and we find out she doesn't have any memories. So the doctor gives her the name Alita, which was the name of his deceased daughter. So in these early sections of the movie, we get to see Alita just basically get acclimated with the world, learning and growing and developing and stuff like that. She's not a baby in a sense. It's just more that she has to get reacclimated with the situation. And we see her meet Hugo, one of the main characters of this movie, and she gets introduced to motorball, which is basically like a soccer rugby type mix. So a couple things to make note of. This place that they're in, Iron City, is a mix of different cultures and architectures and stuff like that. So you see buildings that look like Indian or African influence, or that look like American or like European influence. And that's because every culture is there because of the fallout from the war 300 years ago. It was so devastating that every race had to basically group together. And then Zalim is a whole nother thing up top of that, so they don't care. The people in Iron City, a lot of them, if you look in the background of the movie, have prosthetic limbs or bodies, and cyborgs and androids is just basically a common thing here. Most of them are a mix. But it's also not strange to see people who have no prosthetics. It's not like human beings are extinct. So you can see a cyborg like Cyborg from Teen Titans walking around, but you can also see a normal person like Hugo walking around. And it's just a mix of different people, just now technology is involved. And we have all different types of vehicles, cars. Like Hugo has a motorcycle that's only one wheel. In a sense, kind of unicycle, but with the motorcycle top on top of it. And it just shows that while the war did a lot of damage, it's still the year 2563. So technology is on the up and up. And this is what I meant with the setting and the lore and the sci-fi elements coming into play. There is so much cool and interesting lore that could have been expounded upon with it already being so cool. So as Alita gets more accustomed to living with Dr. Ito, she notices that he goes out at night without telling anybody. And this also coincides with there being a bunch of murders and disappearances of women being torn up to shreds by some like Jack the Ripper type of guy. So when she goes to find out if that's really him or not and confront him about it, she finds out that he isn't the murderer, he's a bounty hunter trying to find the murderer. And the people that show up are three cyborgs, and they all have bounties on their heads, right? And one of them being Garishka, one of the strongest like monsters out there, basically. And so once Ito is threatened, Alita just basically goes crazy and starts killing two of the cyborgs that tried to kill him. She also severely injures Garishka, so he has to retreat for now, leaving her and Ito to talk about what just happened. And Alita's just like, why didn't you tell me about your past? Do you know more about me than I do or that you're letting on? And he's just basically like, listen, you don't have to worry about it right now. But he is a bounty hunter, and she wants to become one too because she knows the ancient technique of Panzerkunst, which is basically androids that maximize their potential of fighting in this martial art. So while she's hanging out with Hugo and some of his friends, they go to a ship that fell from the United Republic of Mars when the Great War basically happened. It was Mars versus Zalim. And while this battle was happening, one of the ships crashed over here. And Hugo wanted to show it to Alita, but as soon as she gets there, she feels a sort of connection to it. So she goes into the water, goes into the ship, and finds a piece of armor that basically is meant to her, that she feels is tied to her. And so she brings it over to Dr. Ito, and he's just like, no, I'm not putting this on you. And she's like, why? And the reason for it is because this is Berserker armor made for the war 300 years ago. And because it's so violent and destructive, he doesn't want to send her down that path. Because she has a second lease in life, no matter what her past was. And he also has been like putting that affection that he had for her daughter onto her. And so they do grow to become a family, but that's not really his daughter. And the thing that we find out is that Ito's ex-wife is a major player in this story, along with Vector, who is the leader of the motorball sports. And those two are colluding together to basically get Alita over to Zalim, dead, basically. So Alita, being frustrated with the fact that Dr. Ito won't help her out, she brings Hugo over to the center where she's going to become a hunter. And she goes over to the hunter's bar where they all collude. And she basically goes over there to ask for their help to take down Garishka. They say no, and then she just starts fighting all of them. Because they're all kind of scum, well, most of them, but some of them do provoke her, so it's not all like she's just being stupid, being a teenager. And some things lead to another, leading to Grishka showing up at the bar, nobody doing anything about him because he has no bounty on his head because he's being protected, right? And Dr. Kieran, who is basically Dr. Ito's ex-wife and Vector, worked on him because Dr. Kieran wants to get to Zalim, and a lot of people want to, right? But because you were born down here, you can't. So Grishka kills Alita's dog that followed her around since the beginning of the movie, and this leads to her just going crazy on him. And they start fighting underground, but he had a new enhancer because one of the motorball players got kidnapped by Hugo, because we find out that Hugo and Tanji, who's one of his friends, are all working for Vector, and they just go basically kidnap people and paralyze them, take their enhancements like their prosthetics or weapons that they have, and bring them over to Vector for the motorball sport. Because of this, though, Grishka has an enhancement that basically gives him the edge over Alita this time, slicing her up into bits, not killing her, but almost killing her. And then Dr. Ito, Hugo, and one of the people upstairs who actually really cared for dogs went down to help as well. And so now they bring her back to Dr. Ito's office, and he reluctantly gives her the Berserker armor. So now, because of this, she looks a lot older because the body morphs into the user's subconscious, and her subconscious wanted to be with Hugo, basically looking a lot older and not being childish, you know? So a couple things to make note of. Kieran, Dr. Ito's ex-wife, is trying to get to Salim, right? Because apparently those two were actually from there. And so she's with Vector right now doing his bidding because Vector is a proxy for Nova, and Nova is the leader of Salim. And so the reason why those two aren't there is because Nova himself exiled both of them. Hugo as well is also trying to get to Salim, more because of his dream and not because he's actually from there. And he's telling Alita all of this, and she's just like, oh, she, like, I want to help you out and stuff like that. Like, this is your dream. But then we find out that the way he's doing it is by earning up 1,000,000 credits for Vector so that Vector can get him there. So this leads to the two of them doing horrible and horrendous things to people, with Hugo and his boys jumping a bunch of people at night, taking their prosthetics and their metal, bringing it to Vector. Meanwhile, Kieran over here is just more, in a sense, extorting a lot of people and taking their metal and experimenting on them as well. So now we're getting closer to the end of the movie where Alita reveals to Hugo, like, yo, I love you so much. And she even opens up her chest, gives Hugo her heart, and tells him, like, yo, you can sell my heart so you can get to Salim if you need that money. Like, just sell my heart. I love you. And Hugo's like, yo, relax. Like, listen, I love you too, but I am not going to sell your heart. You can't just do that for somebody. This is your life. But Alita doesn't care. And to me, I feel like this is a really good scene for the main character. It just really shows how loyal she is to the people that treated her right. And she hasn't learned how evil and how depraved and disgusting the world really is, at least in terms of her suffering a loss of somebody that she loves yet. But her world, compared to Dr. Ito's, Hugo's, and Kieran's perspective, are all different because they all suffered loss. But Alita hasn't, or at least doesn't remember any loss that she suffered beforehand. So this new life, she doesn't know any loss yet. So Hugo and Ernest is like, hey, why not go sign up for Motorball? Your body's pretty crazy. You can go handle them. I feel like you'd be pretty good for it. And he's saying it so that they can earn money so they can go together instead of her sacrificing her heart or instead of her dying while she goes over to Vector, right? Because he doesn't believe that she's going to die or that he's going to kill her. So once she prepares for the Motorball sport, he's actually going around and still kidnapping people and all that stuff. And then Zapan actually finds him, right? And he kills his boy Tanji, who was all around the movie since the beginning. And the reason why he killed Tanji was because he was trying to frame Hugo for murder. And the reason why Hugo was still with Tanji, even though he loves Alita, is because he was trying to get out of that business. And he was telling Tanji, like, yo, you need to do the same thing. But now that he's dead, he's using this chance as a way to run for it because Tanji gave him this opportunity willingly. And so he's just being chased by Zapan. And he's kind of like a Jetstream Sand type, where he's a cyborg in a sense, with a crazy sword. A sword made from the same material that Alita's body is made out of now. So while Alita's getting ready, Dr. Ito's just basically cheering her on and preparing her, getting her ready and everything. And once she gets out there, people realize, like, yeah, she's actually there against the entire, like, bounty hunters and, like, a bunch of scoundrels because they want to kill her because Vector set this all up, right? It was a dirty batch from the start. And so once she goes out there, she kills a lot of them because Motorball, you can just do that because this is just a wasteland. And once she gets a call from Hugo, he's like, yo, I need your help so bad. This guy is trying to kill me. Please come help me. And then she's like, I'm on it. And then she jumps out of the track and just goes after where Hugo is. And as a little side note, the reason why this world is so lawless is because police just went extinct after the war happened. But instead, the people who took up that position of authority were the bounty hunters. But because it's so lawless in their own group, bounty hunters are either really good people like Dr. Ito or really bad people like Zapan, right? But regardless, she manages to catch up to Hugo, and Zapan is there as well. And Zapan reveals, like, yeah, so this guy's been kidnapping people, taking their parts and stuff like that. And this part really gets me upset because Hugo is somebody that Alita loves. Literally, you almost gave him your heart. And you tell me that some guy that almost killed you in a bar that you hate is going to dissuade you from the person that you love? But on top of that, it's not even like Hugo had a good defense for himself. He was just like, hey, I mean, I did kidnap people and maybe I did kill some people. But hey, I mean, maybe I deserve to die, so why not just kill me, right? And it was just like, man, what? Come on, what is this? Why don't you get your Ace Attorney defense lawyers up, bro? This is a girl that you love. She would understand. And if anything, you need to understand too, because she would love you no matter what. But Zapan grows tired of Alita being conflicted, and he just stabs Hugo in the body. And he's basically like, hey, listen, because this man is a wanted criminal, you either kill him or I kill him, no matter what happens. You're forced into this situation. And so she goes into like a church behind him, right? And here we see Dr. Kieran because, again, she's working with Vector, so she knew where Alita was, right? And now that she sees that Alita's crying over his body that's growing colder and colder, she helps out Alita in this situation. And so when she goes back out, she has Hugo's head, and it's enough to convince the Centurion bots who authenticate if the person is dead or not. So they leave, and then it's just a van here like, yo, listen, he is still alive. I know that he is. And so when the bots look around, it's like, oh, I mean, he's dead. It's fine. Zapan just starts tweaking out, and then Alita's just like, oh, hey, listen, F you. And then he takes his own sword and then slices his face off and then keeps the sword. So Alita just has that sword now. But now that Hugo is basically saved, Alita takes him over to Dr. Ito's lab. He gets a whole new cyborg body, and Alita now goes over to Vector to finish him off, right? And so once she gets there, they have a talk, and Vector reveals, like, yeah, I'm Nova's proxy, right? And so he shows up, and her and Alita start talking, and all of them, it's just basically like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna kill you and all that stuff. And Alita's just like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you too. And so once she kills Vector, he's like, well, he was getting annoying anyway, so I'll see you up here, Alita. And Alita's just like, man, I hate you, bro. And Gawishka shows up as well. She killed him before Nova showed up, so he's just dead. And now we go back to where Hugo was at, because Hugo was climbing up like a little beam to try to get up to Salim to basically kill himself, or at the very least to get his dream before he dies. And then Alita's just basically like, yo, what are you doing? And he's just like, yo, listen, our lives are going to be terrible if I'm still alive. You're going to be chased after forever because I'm a criminal, you know? You aren't a criminal. And so Alita's just like, I don't care. I love you. And then he's like, oh, okay. But then Nova, he sends out like a little defense force for the pillar that they have. And so that leads to Hugo falling to his death. And now Alita knows the loss of losing somebody that you love dearly. So we cut away to the end of the movie where Alita now has been playing motorball for a couple months as she's grown and developed, and now she's just one of the best in her sport. As she's out there, she still has the katana that she got from Zapan or that she stole. And now with a goal in mind, she's going to become the final champion to go up to Salim and fight him and kill him. Because the goal that she had from her past memories, which I didn't mention, is that her and the United Republic of Mars were supposed to go up to Salim and kill them all, right? That was the whole war. And so now that she remembers, she is going to do that now more because of her own life that she's lived and not just because of the directive that she got from her memories. And her memories overall didn't really play a big part in the movie, just that her designation number is number 99, her directive is to kill Zalim, and that she's a warrior, she's 300 years old, and that's basically it. But Dr. Ito knew that, he just didn't tell her as well. But that's the end of the movie. And with the sequel coming out, I don't know when, there's no confirmed date for it, it's just that it's in development, so hopefully that'll come soon. I'm excited to see what happens next. And after all that was said, it just solidified more how much I love the sci-fi elements in this movie. Because there is so much stuff that you can just look at and be like, what's the story behind this? And the movie doesn't give us it, and that's perfectly fine. I just wish that the movie gave us something. Because it gave us some information on the war, the United Republic of Mars, Zalim, and Nova. And those were all really cool. Even if Nova just seems like kind of a sandbag of a villain, nothing much to him. I just want to see where will this story go on. Because with Dune, again, even though this is only part one for that series, it still gave us a lot to feed off of and just learn, and that there's more on the horizon. But here, it didn't give us enough, at least for me, to satiate my hunger to learn what's going on in the story. I just want to see more, despite the villains being handled and the story being tighter, because this was a story fit for one film. And while having talked about this, even though I was disappointed, there is a lot of hope and expectation for me going forward when it comes to the sequel to this movie. Because James Cameron had a part in it, right? And I like the Avatar movies that he made. So if they take what they did from the first movie, and improve upon it, and really just deliver, even if they don't deliver a lot on what I want, at the very least, if they improve it, I will definitely give that movie a watch and give it a higher score. Because this movie, it's an average movie. I don't want to paint it with the way I've been talking about it, like it's a bad movie. It's not. If you enjoy it, then you enjoy it. And I don't want to rate on that parade. It's just for me, I can't look at it and be like, yeah, this is a great movie. For me, it's just average. Sometimes below average, sometimes above average. But overall, just average. But the potential is still there. So I'm going to hold out hope, and I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. 6.5 out of 10 now looking at it. I feel like a 6 to a 6.5 is a good score for it. It's average, close to a little bit above average. But overall, not for me. Thank you all for watching though. I hope you all enjoy. Let me know down below if you like or love or hate this movie. I don't know the general opinion on it, or if my opinion is a very ostracized one, so let me know down below. Give me some movie recommendations or shows or anime or manga down below. And until next time, this has been Infamous Isaac. I'll see you all in the next video. Hope y'all enjoyed, and hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Peace.